Hello, welcome to another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we always have interesting guests and pose interesting questions to our listening audience. Tonight, we are going to deal with the issue of relationships, and more specifically, how a sociopath or a narcissist can affect you if you happen to be in a relationship with one. Also, we would like to see what the differences are between sociopaths and narcissists. So we have a really interesting guest who's an expert in this field. She wrote the book I Am Free, and has a website that deals with freedom from narcissistic abuse. She is a licensed psychologist who deals with cluster B personality disorders, of which these are part of it. And that's Dr. Bree Bonchay. Okay, it's Bonchay, right?
It is. My name's Bree Bonchay. I'm also a psychotherapist, not a psychologist or a doctor.
Okay. Well, then, tell me, what got you going in this particular field?
I've always been interested in psychopathy from a young age. Actually, I used to read a lot of true crime and wanted to actually be a criminal profiler until I learned that I would have to, they could pretty much put you anywhere in the U.S. once you, finish the FBI program. So I just became a psychotherapist, and I had been practicing for almost 20 years now, and I worked in all different settings. And I actually became involved in a relationship where, for the first time in my life, I was on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse. And it really gave me an insight that I could never have gotten from anywhere, from any kind of classroom or any professional experience. So that sort of reignited my interest in this field, and I started to, blog about it and started a forum, and that's pretty much how I got into this field and narrowed my focus.
And so that's what inspired you to start writing about it and also reaching out to the general public.
Yes, definitely. I was really wanting to raise awareness because it was something that, like I said, any kind of classroom experience would not have really given me the same kind of perspective to really understand it to the degree that I did when I actually experienced it. And so I really felt that it was important to try to raise more public awareness about it and help other people recover from it, because I was seeing that so many people were so damaged.
So this reaches this is like a large scale number of people that are affected by such people.
Yeah, when I started blogging about it and started my Facebook forum, I was really shocked and surprised about how many people were coming forward and saying that they had been in these type of relationships. And in fact, I was kind of skeptical that there could be this many. And so I started to do a little bit of my research, and I came across something that Sandra L. Brown, who's the author of oh my goodness, she's the author of the book Women Who Love Psychopaths. I'm sorry. And so she was basically, I guess, her and her team had done some math and came, they took the number of antisocial personality disorder people, population in the U.S. and narcissistic population, and added that up, and I think they times it by like 5 people that they could possibly negatively impact over their lifetime, and came up with the number of 60 million people are negatively impacted by these types of personalities. And so, that's a lot of people. That's actually more people than diabetes or depression. And yet there's not any kind of public awareness or public education on any real level about it.
No, and like Hollywood, the way they present people with these kinds of disorders is, would you agree it's kind of cartoonish? It doesn't really show you how they really are in real life?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's actually quite a disservice, because I think people really look for, or most people really have no idea what a narcissist is. I think if you were to go on the street and just kind of randomly ask people what is a narcissist or what is a sociopath, you would probably get answers like, a narcissist is someone who's really vain or into themselves or takes a lot of selfies, and they probably think sociopaths are murderers, and really that it couldn't be further from the truth. Vanity is just a very, very minor characteristic of narcissists, and not even all are vain or concerned about their appearance. So it's really misleading, and I think that it's part of the reason why that narcissist can be so damaging, is because people aren't really looking for or even knowing what to look for.
Okay, we're going to get into that here in a lot more depth. I was just, for just the sake of discussion though, since we're contrasting narcissist, would you say there's really not a major difference in regards to impact and basic personality traits of a sociopath and a psychopath?
As far as their impact on, the people that are close to them and their intimate relationships, no. I don't think that there's, much of a difference on the impact. The impact is pretty much the same, and even with narcissists, it's all devastating. They all pretty much harm people emotionally and psychologically, financially, and really just kind of turn their worlds upside down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so, I just mentioned that because when you mentioned the title to Sandra Brown's book, I didn't want audience members to get confused here and wonder, well, wait, I thought we were talking about sociopaths or psychopaths or something like that. So, in regards to the differences and similarities, really, if you had to really boil it down to what's the same characteristics of a narcissist and a sociopath, we'll use a sociopath as the term, and the differences between narcissists and sociopaths, and then maybe how, even though they're different, they may have the same kind of impacts on the people they're in touch with, and maybe the differences as well.
Okay. Well, narcissists and sociopaths are both basically they both lack empathy and exploit other people, and these are two of the main characteristics that are extremely harmful part of their personalities. And both of and personality disorders in general are pervasive, which means that they're pretty much, completely take over their thinking and their feeling and their way of relating. And so it's kind of a permanent. It's almost like a cancer that's pervasive or has spread. It's permanent. They're not, they're very rigid. They don't learn from their consequences, and they don't really maintain any kind of change. And this is how they are both very damaging. As far as narcissist is, the differences between a narcissist and a sociopath is sociopaths are more, well, they fall more into the category of antisocial personality disorders, really what the clinical work for that would be. And they have a disregard for people's safety and, boundaries of others. They usually tend to have more criminality and a conduct disorder, in childhood, which means that they were having serious behavioral problems, maybe getting in trouble with the law or setting fires. And where narcissists, that isn't necessarily part of their history. So sociopaths, both of them are just they both lie, they both are impulsive, they both can really can be charming in the beginning, are very good at conning. They both have learned from a young age to really to mimic other people and to fake emotionality and empathy to get ahead and to further their agenda.
Okay, so they have a lot of similarities. If there was one glaring difference, what would you say it is?
I think that narcissists are able to fit in better than sociopaths. They're probably can fly under the radar a little bit better. Sociopaths tend to be a little bit more. They live more on the fringe of society. They tend to be more low functioning. Not all the time, just generally. They're a little bit more low functioning. Where narcissists probably are a little bit, or even a lot at times, can be better socially. Narcissists are more. They do things. They're more motivated out of ego, out of fulfilling their ego need. That they're more driven by the need for praise and approval and adulation, where sociopaths aren't really as affected as much by that they're not as driven by that need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard exactly what you said there. I've heard that the sociopath really doesn't care what people think of their actions, whereas the narcissist actually does have a certain level of ego approval, so therefore they do tend to fit in a little bit better.
Exactly, and they definitely they're more pro-social. I kind of look at them as they're more high functioning, and they usually have good jobs. They can keep relationships longer. They usually don't have so much criminality, and if they do, it's probably more hidden. It's sociopaths tend to just to be just to have more criminal history, just more antisocial type behaviors that are obvious and apparent in the way that they live their lives. They might have been in jail. They're more parasitic in their lifestyle. They usually don't have really great jobs or have completed their education. So and of course I'm generalizing. I know people tend to it's not every sociopath or every narcissist is like this. This is really just a generalization.
Okay, I'm going to go into ask you about the warning signs that if you're in a relationship with one of these people. But would you say, so we just got out of this election in 2016. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about particular people. But we just got out of the election, and there was a lot of articles on politicians and and sociopathy and narcissism and stuff like that. Would you say that we probably do have a lot of high functioning narcissists and sociopaths that actually do make it into leadership positions?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, in some ways, to have a healthy amount of narcissism isn't a bad thing, and it's not damaging to others. But definitely, people who are narcissistic are driven to those kind of positions because it feeds their need for control, and it feeds their need to be admired by others.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the whole dark triad thing, but I don't want to go into that so much because that gets into politics and stuff. Maybe another time. Okay. What are the early warning signs? Let's say you have, and I'm not saying, I know that there's plenty of narcissistic and sociopathic women. I mean, that's what my fiction series, Freedom from Conscience, is all about, a kind of a sociopathic female. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, you've got two sisters, and they've just both met the guys of their dreams. And unfortunately, one of them has just met and is dating a narcissist. The other one has just met and is dating a sociopath. What are the early warning signs each might take into account?
That's an interesting question. I don't think the warning signs would be too different between the two. I think more the lifestyle and would be more telling of which one is a narcissist and a sociopath. But both disorders pretty much in relationships they work the same way, and they're really good at fooling people. That is part of the disorder. They've learned to hide. Sociopaths probably, not as great, but there are a lot of high functioning sociopaths. So, if they, you probably wouldn't be able to tell if they're good at what they're doing. You wouldn't be able to tell because that's the whole idea. They're trying to get you and invested into the relationship before you can figure out their agenda and what's really going on. And so, they're on their best behavior, and the relationships start out wonderfully and probably better than any other relationship start that you've ever had. And so there are warning signs and that are pretty typical of all of the both disorders, and that is both, they tend to move the relationships really fast because of what I said about how they're trying to get their partners invested quickly, and so that, it's not uncommon that they will, throw out the L word in 2 weeks or less even, and might talk about marriage and children and going on a vacation within the first month or two. I've heard a lot of people say they've moved in within a month, so they move the relationship extremely fast, and a lot of people tend to kind of mistake that for, just really intensity and because it's just meant to be, and it's such a great relationship and we're really in love, and so this is why it's moving so quickly, but really it's just to get you invested quickly before you can get on to them. The other thing that both do is they'll put their partners on a pedestal, and everything their partner does is great. Their partner is pretty much the most perfect partner on the planet. And so they use a lot of flattery and a lot of mimicry. So like everything that you like, they'll like. Everything that you're interested in, they're interested in. Your goals are their goals. And so, it really will give their partners the feeling that they've met their soulmate, their match, their perfect, ideal person. And that serves to lower the person's guard and I guess another reason is if they can build up their partner so much in their minds that their partner becomes, especially with narcissists, their partner becomes a more valuable source of supply or ego fuel or whatever you'd like to call it in their minds, and so it makes them feel better. And if their partner is perfect, then they must be perfect by association. And so that sort of feeds that need to feel special or need to be perfect, need to kind of uphold and maintain their false sense of self that they're trying to project to people. And I think the other really early warning sign is you'll hear their stories and you'll start to realize that they're never really responsible or at fault for anything. Their circumstance in life or their past relationships, it's really not their fault. And there's always, it's somebody else's fault. A coworker was jealous and tried to get them fired. They know more than their boss, so their boss had it out for them. And so you start to see a pattern of just not taking any kind of accountability for anything, and that's a real telltale sign that you can tend to see pretty early on.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, those are things that I think a lot of times you can see in a lot of people, but there must be a stage as it progresses. Let's say you're 3 months, 4 months, 5 months into the relationship. What are the things that suddenly, cease to be maybe a little bit irritating and suddenly become, the red flags?
Right. Over time, it's interesting because I was kind of curious to find out when, in hindsight, people realized there was a change, or what they say, that the mask slipped. So I just did an informal anecdotal survey of 100 survivors and asked them when they first started to see that mask slip and start to really see signs that something was wrong. And I got answers from 1 month all the way to over 5 years, but I think the average time was about 6 months into the relationship. They really started to see signs that something was wrong, and those signs usually are, they always have to be right. There's a lot of very all or nothing thinking. You start to notice that everything is good. Either you're all good or you're all bad. This is right or wrong. They don't have a real capacity to see much gray area. And there's also, so you start to see, they'll start to do a lot of triangulation, which basically is kind of a tactic that they use a lot because it gets them, you get a lot of bang for your buck when you use it. They can triangulate pretty much anything, but usually they'll create jealousies and a lot of drama through telling, maybe talking about another person a lot and creating some jealousy within their partner, which is used to really kind of create a sense of insecurity and kind of throw the partner off balance and subtly let the partner know that they can be replaced. They start to use what's called gaslighting, which is kind of distorting their partner's reality. They may say something and then, pretty much in the next sentence just say, "I never said that." And again, it's all for the same reasons. It's to throw their partners off balance, to confuse them, to keep them sort of in a state of confusion where they're more suggestible and they can be controlled more. They can be very hypocritical. You'll see a lot of hypocrisy where they hold their partners to very high standards, but there's always a reason why they don't need to also hold themselves to the same high standards. And you'll see a lot of just basic, complete opposite behavior from the beginning, which creates a lot of confusion in partners because the partner tends to think, well, what did I do? How come this person's changed? And the narcissist or sociopath will then always make it their partner's fault again because they don't take responsibility. So their partner starts to feel that they can't do anything right, that what they do is never good enough, and those tend to just worsen over time.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that these people, the narcissists and the sociopaths, do they do this deliberately? Do they do it subconsciously, out of habit, or like a combination of both?
Yeah, I believe it's probably a combination of both. I tend to look at things more on a spectrum and I not so cut and dry, and I definitely think that it's a combination of both. It's probably partly a skill that they've just gotten good at over time, and they realize it works, so they keep doing it. And part of it's probably more just unconscious, conscious, and they it's sort of in their personality to do it, and they do it because it comes natural.
Okay, interesting. Hey, by the way, statistically, you've treated the victims, right?
Yes.
Have you ever treated the perpetrators?
No. I mean, I've seen them in practice. I've seen them because family members have, brought them in, begrudgingly or something. But no, I've never strictly focused on treatment of personality disorders.
Okay. And is there a difference between the male ones and the female ones?
Yeah, there are differences between female and male, and I think that the female narcissists tend to look more borderline. There's more emotionality and up and down. The whole "I love you," I hate you, come here, go away. That they create in their relationships. They're definitely their manipulation is more sexual in nature. So there are definitely differences. There's definitely differences.
Okay, whereas the female sociopath probably a little bit less towards the threatening their life type thing. I heard just somewhere that psychopaths, sociopaths have a very low rate of actual attempts at suicide.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They really. I've read the same type of statistics, and if women and borderline women tend to have a very high rate of either threats of suicide or actually carrying it out with attempts. But if they're sociopath, then definitely not a lot of threats or suicidal behaviors like that.
Okay, interesting. Now, were there any misconceptions about these disorders that you think the public has that are not necessarily correct? I know that we kind of touched on that a little bit with the how Hollywood portrays it, but are there? And then I'm going to go back to one Hollywood question as soon as you do that. What are any misconceptions?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is, as far as narcissists, is that they love themselves. I mean, I think the word narcissist means self-love, and in actuality, they don't love themselves, and basically their entitlement and their grandiosity and are really just covers for their feelings of inferiority and self-loathing at times. So I think that is really the biggest misconception. They're really driven by their behaviors, that their need to control and their entitlement. They always put themselves first. Their self-centeredness is really driven from not feeling good and needing to feel good, to feel special, to feel. So they manipulate others to get that need filled, and so it's really, that is the biggest misconception, because most people think that they're just so in love with themselves, and they think they're all that, and but really it's the opposite.
Okay, and the same with sociopaths?
I think sociopaths are less, they're just, I don't think that their egos are in their way as much, and they're not affected by their egos. I think they're just not. It's kind of different, and they probably they're manipulative more to just it's a means to an end more than to fulfill their need to feel good about themselves by putting other people down and hurting others. It's more just a way to further their agenda and to kind of accomplish whatever that they're trying to accomplish, whether it's to get money or a place to stay or whatever it is, whatever their desire is.
Now, a quick question here. You may not have even thought about it, but does Hollywood actually have characters that they actually get it right? I mean, or if you watch a movie or a TV show, do you see a certain character that's like a archetypical true narcissist and archetypical true sociopath?
No, I don't watch a lot of TV. So
okay. Probably better off.
I'm not I really can't answer that. I know there's so many shows out there too that but I don't watch them, so I can't really say.
Okay, that's fine. I thought, you're down Southern California, maybe. That's where they make all these films. I'm sure there's plenty of sociopaths that inhabit Hollywood. That's for sure.
I'm sure. I mean, they're everywhere, and that's the thing. I mean, there's so many of them, and we just don't know it, and there's no real education about it, or any kind of awareness of what to look for, and they're really damaging, and there's, they affect so many people, and the effect isn't just on those people, but it's even larger than that, because these people that, relationships, even just non-toxic relationships, affect people badly, and they have a lot of depression or stress, anxiety, because of interpersonal relationships, and then you add a toxic interpersonal relationship, and it just really is so much worse. And people miss work, and they're not as productive. They may get laid off, and then go on unemployment, and it really, it taxes our state, system. If they don't have money, then they might go, apply for public housing and all sorts of things, and then also the court systems, our family court systems, get clogged, and that costs, money, and narcissists tend to be very litigious, so it just makes it even worse, and so it really, it's a really negative impact, and more than we even realize.
Now, I know that it sounds like probably the damage they do to a person in a relationship is fairly similar. I mean, if you go to the hospital and your arm got broken because you fell off a ladder, or you got in a fight, your arm still is broken. It's even though it's from a different source. Would you say that's pretty accurate, that when a person gets out of a relationship with either a narcissist or a sociopath, it's going to be pretty much the same symptoms they're going to show?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people do get stuck on trying to figure out if their ex was a narcissist or a sociopath. And really, it doesn't matter. The damage is the same, that the effects are felt the same, and knowing whether they were a narcissist or a sociopath doesn't make any difference. If it was a sociopath, doesn't necessarily mean that the abuse was worse, or the damage was worse to the psyche, or so it definitely would be the same impact on the person.
So how do people heal from this?
Well, it's a process, and it takes a lot of people. It takes since it's such a foreign concept, and they really can't wrap their heads around it. It takes a lot of education about this disorder to really understand it, and to understand that it's pervasive, and to sort of let go of the hope that this partner that they love can change, because I mean, there are experts who do believe that that they can be helped, but really there's really not a lot of good studies that support any kind of change like that, or that their therapy really does any long-term, any long-term benefit or change from that. So, and the other thing with the people that are most likely to get involved with narcissists or sociopaths, usually they don't have good boundaries. And so developing really strong and firm boundaries is important. Is not even important. It's essential, and it's essential to also to prevent relationships like this from happening again, because just knowing about it and understanding it and being able to, tell people the difference between a narcissist and a sociopath and the definitions for all the different terms like triangulation and gaslighting, which all the survivors know, is not enough to prevent it from happening again. And so there needs to be some work with their own boundaries and getting validation through people who've experienced it, through therapists, because a lot of times at the end of these relationships, that nobody believes them, or everybody, or even their own family may think that their ex is such a wonderful person because they didn't see it, and of course they're good at conning people. And so I think that makes healing even more difficult, because nobody sees it or believes you, or your ex has started a smear campaign and turned people against you, and it creates more doubt in yourself and what if your experience, and it makes it harder to heal sometimes when you don't have that validation. So finding that validation through people who've experienced it, and support online or with a therapist is really important.
Okay. Well, very good. It looks like we're kind of coming to the end of this segment. Can you tell people how to find your website, and also to be able to obtain your book, the I Am Free book? I love that. I love that cover, by the way. That's the Phoenix, correct?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I had my Facebook forum. I had I think 2 examples of covers, and they voted for that one. I wanted it to be something that really resonated with the survivor community. But they can find my book on Amazon, and my website is, I actually just added a new URL, which is freefromtoxic.com, and they can go visit my blog or find me on Facebook at Narcissistic Abuse and Toxic Relationship Forum.
Okay, I'll link those in the description as well.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good evening and welcome back to the show. This is Michael Cross here with the second half of Unlock the Radio here on UCY TV Productions. Anyway, before I begin, well, let's just say I gotta let you know what the topic is. It's gonna be fake news. No, this is not gonna be fake, okay? And nothing on my website is fake, or a YouTube channel is fake. By the way, if you're listening to this later on YouTube, click on those links up there on the video, and become a subscriber and keep up on new shows, and also check out my writings on my official page. Now, the one thing I would like to say, though, about this whole fake news thing, that's really been taking off, I don't know, since the election. Now, my problem is this. We see that the mainstream media is losing credibility, and losing credibility very rapidly. We see that before the election, now it doesn't matter whether you're a Trump supporter, not a Trump supporter, Hillary supporter, not Bernie, not whatever. The thing is that the news media, many people were starting to see. They were starting to analyze, and they were coming to the understanding that there actually was an agenda behind much of the news they were listening to. And the thing is that, it's sort of like when you take film literature class. And I personally think film lit should be a required class. Take away one of those English classes or literature classes that's required in most high schools around the United States. Stick in a half a year of film literature. Because, obviously, people spend more time watching TV or movies than they do, reading books. But the thing is that these are platforms by which you need to learn how to analyze and be able to tell, by camera angles, words used, costume design, all of these other things that, you learn how to really see behind the making of a movie. And the thing is, these skills can be applied then to the media, to where you start noticing the words used, the words not used, the kinds of guests that are brought on, the topics that are discussed. And, as time goes on, you just start saying, wait a minute, this isn't the way it is. You go to a Hillary rally, and you see 100 people, and then you see the camera angles making it look like there's thousands. You see a Bernie rally or a Trump rally. You go there and you see 50,000 people or something like that at either one of them. And then you see the way the camera angles are. They make it look like as if the Hillary and the Bernie or the Trump rallies had the same number of people. And sometimes, you let one of the candidates speak, you let them have a sound bite, the other one, you tell the audience what they talked about. And you use words that, you use words like if a politician that you don't like makes a statement that you don't like, then you could say his unsubstantiated claim, rather than, saying basically that he proposed. And then, it's just the way you word things. But let's just talk, you want to talk about fake news. I think the problem is that, yes, there is fake news out there. And there are techniques by which you can learn, how to tell fake and real news stories. Most of the time you can tell by the kinds of articles, products they're advertising, usually really wild claims that you're thinking, if this was really true, this would actually be picked up in even the mainstream media. They could not ignore these kinds of things. If it's being ignored and it sounds too good or too crazy to be true, it probably is, okay? I mean, that's just the way it is. Unless you know something about the site. Okay, if you have gone there, you've seen that they may be very opinionated or sensationalistic, but they generally report the truth, then you can trust them. But if it's just some link you see on Facebook, forget it, And I saw fake stuff. Okay, I'll say this much. I saw fake stuff on both sides. I saw, these statements that allegedly Donald Trump claimed that if he was going to run for president, he'd run as a Democrat. I mean, a Republican, because Republicans are so stupid. Okay, that got shared and shared and shared and shared. There was also a story that I saw posted quite a bit. I have a lot of liberal friends on my Facebook. And it said that it had been shown that the WikiLeaks mails and so forth, and this was in some credible publications, credible in the fact that they were corporate media, that there was some pretty good evidence that they were doctored. Now, this is not true. Okay? That was fake. That was false. And then, on top of that, and I'm going to go back and show some more history here. Okay? If you're going to talk about fake news, there's plenty of fake stuff out there. Just because, you've got a giant corporation with billions of dollars behind it doesn't mean that it's always true. And the thing is that there was an article that was linked in one of the large newspapers, and it was to this site that claimed that there was all this evidence of Russian interference in the U.S. Media, the alternative media. Oh my gosh, I saw weird stuff there. I've interviewed Paul Craig Roberts before. He was a high-up official in the Reagan administration. And he was listed on that page. And he was also, when it said, they had this really simplistic, is it a right-wing site or a left-wing site? He was listed as left-wing. I was just thinking, how in the world could you list someone who was high up in the Reagan administration as being left-wing? But they had really ripped into some left-wing alternative and right-wing alternative. They had this thing where it was, it had like one of the major alternative news sources, and it had a picture there of, from that site, and then it had a picture of some Soviet propaganda, and it said, Soviet propaganda then and, now. And essentially it looked like any time that you had some sort of alternative media, whether it was left-wing, right-wing, and it was even questioning U.S. foreign policy, then it must be a Russian plot. Oh my gosh, there's Russians hiding everywhere. I mean, I saw someone trip on the sidewalk a couple days ago. Must have been the Russians. Your ice cream disappears in the refrigerator. Don't blame the kids. It was probably a Russian agent that ate it. Russians love ice cream. But the thing is, there was so many. There was another thing. They had was Vigilant Citizen was listed, and I've looked at that sometimes. Just for get some. Their take on maybe a movie or something, and the symbolism in there. And it's not a political site, really. What? Questioning Hollywood means that you're all of a sudden, you're part of some sort of thing, where your patriotism is in question. But yet this was thrown out there, and then I saw other publications pick up on it and give publicity to this site. And the thing is that this is dangerous. Okay? If the corporate media is so scared of the alternative media, which can be anything from, I don't know, it could be Stefan Molyneux, his take on things, or it could be just someone who has a little podcast in their garage and maybe reaches 20 people. Okay? That's all alternative news. But the thing is, there's so many people doing it, and it's gaining in power where people are sharing more on social media. They see an article, or they write an article. They share it on social media. And now there's all these calls for clamping down. Oh, it's fake. But what's your definition of fake? Okay? I was talking to someone the other day. Now, I don't ever deal with this issue. Okay? The whole 9/11 thing. I've never dealt with it. But I'll tell you, this was funny because this woman I was talking to, she said something about fake news. It should be banned. And I said, well, what do you mean by fake news? And she said, my brother, who's really intelligent and really educated, he believes that 9/11 was an inside job. And I said, okay, well, is there anything wrong with that? I mean, that's his opinion. Well, yes, it is. That kind of stuff should be banned. And I said, well, what if your brother set up a site, and shared this? Well, it shouldn't be shared. And that's scary because I just think whether you believe that it was inside job or it was Al-Qaeda or whatever, it should be debated. It should be discussed and let people come to their own conclusions. But see, there's where we get into, there's a lot of media out there that is speculative. A lot of alternative media is speculative. It will say this could be, and I don't care whether you're talking about, things dealing with conspiracies or whatever. It's still something that's not meant to be fake. Okay? You're not lying. You're not trying to deceive people. And that should be the major thing there. And so the alternative media, all of a sudden, much of it that is speculative, even though it's also giving information, you could get easily government agencies saying, no, that's fake. Ban it. And then they can put pressure on social media. Ban it. Oh, they got an article about Russia and Putin, and it's a good article about Russia and Putin. Ban it. Pretty soon we're in an era that would make McCarthy look like some sort of hippie, sitting in a free speech zone in front of a courthouse. Okay? That is dangerous. Now, if you want to talk fake news, let's talk about such things as the, let's see, a good example here. We could talk about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, or government officials showing underground city sort of military bases in Afghanistan. And the media not saying, hey, do you have some proof of this? I mean, the media was promoting so many war things without questioning it. And it didn't, and you'd think, well, they learned since Iraq. They're not going to fall for that one again. And then during the whole thing in Libya, there was these stories of, Gaddafi is giving Viagra to his troops so that they'll be able to go through the cities and rape people. There was no evidence of it. But yet it still went out as true. Or it was written in such a way that the reader will believe it's true, whether it says this is absolutely true or not. Now, there's other instances where I think it's imperative that we resist this big, let's clamp down on the First Amendment. Julian Assange warned about this just a few months ago. The whole thing about, that all of a sudden, if you're critical of U.S. foreign policy, maybe you might be a Russian agent or something like that. I think he said it more in the context of Hillary Clinton. But the thing is that this is dangerous. If you like your First Amendment and you want to keep your First Amendment, you better pay attention to what's going on right now. And when you hear the thing about the fake news, look where it's coming from. Okay? If this is almost akin. This is almost akin to if you had some big agribusiness and they were surrounded by a lot of organic farmers, and the big agribusiness was saying, you can't trust eating any of the apples from their orchards because they might be dangerous, without really giving you any evidence to the effect, but just trying to scare the customers. And maybe get the customers to call their congressman and make a law against organic farmers. Okay? This is trying to stifle the competition. And that is the only motivation. If there's so much fake news, why wasn't it being dealt with before the election? Huh? I mean, it must have been going on for quite some time. Why was it only after the election that the media suddenly goes, whoa, there's fake news, oh my gosh? Because their media is fake.
This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening